Welcome into the Dynasty After Party. How is everyone doing today? My name is Michael Sicoli, joined as always by Joel Wirth. And we have a special guest today for everyone watching on YouTube. You see it right to my, or you see her right to my right, Julia Papworth. How are we
Hi.
doing today, Julia? Happy to have you.
Good. I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're
Awesome.
fantastic. Joel, how are you? How are you? I didn't ask you.
Really good. The penultimate Sunday before real Sundays kick in. So yeah, it's getting there. We get Labor Day and then we get real football. So let's go.
Yeah, I will say we've been having a good month. Listen, the Packers have looked on fire. The Steelers have looked on fire. Julia, I forgot to ask you this before the show. What's your team?
Oh, we can just breeze right over those Arizona Cardinals. We can just breeze right over them.
Oh my. Well, yeah.
It's gonna be a couple rebuilding years. So I'm probably just gonna jump on my husband's bandwagon once we lose our first 7 games and be a Niners fan for the rest of the season. But can't wait to see Caleb Williams in a Cardinals jersey. That'd be great.
See, it's not the. I was thinking it through, and we'll touch on it a little bit in this show because we're run through some headlines of the last week. We're going to be jumping into a dynasty startup draft, standard scoring, specifically requested for you guys because we're here to help you, and run through a few trades, all the fun dynasty stuff. But Kyler Murray, listen, and the Cardinals, I don't think it's as bad of a future as you guys might think. Because worst case, you get you get Caleb Williams, which is fantastic, or maybe you get Marvin Harrison. You got Marvin Harrison, Marquise Brown, Kyler,
or both, both. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Texans situation as well. So it's not the worst. Like it might be ugly this year, but it's really not the worst situation at least.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, being an Arizona sports fan is just. We just get so depressed anyway. Like we're just always let down. We're always close and then let down. So I think we have a tendency to just be like, well, it's going to be like that again. And then if it's not, we're just pleasantly surprised. So we like to set ourselves up like that.
I think that's a feeling we're all too familiar with our sports teams in general. Hey, Kelly, good to see you in the chat as well.
Kelly.
Real quick, especially while we're at the top of the show, something Ryan always taught to me. Julia, I want you to shout out everything that people can find your stuff on because we know people don't always stick to the full hour, so we want to hit you right at the top here.
Yeah, thank you. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Julia Papworth. I'm doing some writing again for Fancy Footballers, so head over there and check out all the great stuff that all the writers have. We have an amazing team of people over there. And I'm actually doing some stuff with Pro Football Network now, so contributing over there. And you're going to see me just doing a lot of other stuff. I'm doing some waiver wire stuff with Win Daily this year and keeping myself busy. So it's exciting.
Well, look at this. I'm also doing some stuff with Win Daily this year.
Awesome. Yeah, there we go. That's fine.
Coworkers. But awesome. And I should have mentioned all that stuff in the beginning, and I apologize for that. But amazing stuff that Julia's doing with Fancy Footballers and everything she does. Morning Chalk as well. So be sure to check out everything Julia does on her Twitter. Again, at Julia Papworth. And obviously, follow myself, follow Club Fantasy FFL at Club Fantasy FFL, myself at Michael__Scully, and the beautiful Joel Wirth below me here at the Joel Wirth on Twitter. So, he's a looker. I tell him every week. But let's jump right into some of the news of the week. Burning the ears of everybody was the Jonathan Taylor saga, which takes yet another loop. So after him returning to practice, is all of a sudden now he's back on the trade block, and doesn't seem to be a Colt for much longer. Colts are asking for a first. No one seems to be willing to give it. The Dolphins have submitted an offer which has been rejected, but they remain close. Listen, Julia, let's just start with you here. It's been a roller coaster all summer with Jonathan Taylor. How are you expecting this to end up?
I mean, I feel like he has to get traded, right? Because if he stays in Indianapolis, he's not going to be happy, and I feel like he's just not going to want to play. So I don't know. I feel like Miami is the best fit. There was some talk about Chicago as well. I don't know. I mean, it's so funny when the ownership is like, we don't value a running back. They're not worth anything, blah, 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 blah. But when we trade him, we're going to need a first-round pick. Then we value him. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think he plays for the Colts this season. I really don't. I think if he doesn't get traded, he's going to be a grumpy grump and not going to want to play. He'll find a way.
It does feel like Jim Irsay's comments kind of drove that final wedge of saying, no one's going to miss you if you're gone. Like that's a tough thing to get over for anybody, especially someone who's given, his body as well as his performance to this organization for 4 years now, or 3 years now. Joel, what about you? What are you expecting?
So I think the most likely scenario is that he ends up with the Colts, just because it's tough to see someone giving up the pick that they want or combination of picks and, redoing his salary. I did bring this up on the Thursday ranking show. The one scenario I could see is if you're Miami and you're Stephen Ross and you're 83 years old and you just kind of gave away a draft pick because you're an idiot and tried to tamper with Sean Payton and Tom Brady and
get neither.
You're just a generally terrible person. Yeah. And you paid your coach to not win. I could see the argument that you say, okay, we're kind of on the fringe Super Bowl contender. We're in a really tough conference and a really tough division. But, if the most glaring weakness on our team is keeping our quarterback healthy, so if we had an elite running game, then maybe we could expose him to less danger.
Yeah.
I think that's bad logic, but I could see it. So
yeah,
that's the only place that really makes any sense.
Yeah, Chris Ballard's always been the general manager of making the cheap decision and playing the value and not buying high on his players. So that's kind of like, I can't imagine Chris Ballard saying no to a second round pick for Jonathan Taylor or a second round pick plus, which
he was a second round pick. So
I think he's a Dolphin. I think Miami's going to desperately overcorrect for not getting Dalvin Cook, which they really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have A-Chain now dealing with an injury. You have Mostert and Jeff Wilson who stayed healthy last year, but the odds of them doing it again, hopefully they do, but you never know.
Well, I was going to say, who are they going to lose from that roster then, running back wise? Who are they going to keep? It'll just be Mostert, A-Chain.
They could keep 4. I could see them keeping 4 with that, or potentially, they re-signed Jeff Wilson, who probably, I think all 4 would probably have to stay.
Yeah.
Given the contract situation with Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert's fit with the scheme within that San Fran type of offense. But yeah, definitely something we're going to be bringing up again on this show. I'm 100% sure, because we already have plenty of times this summer. So Terry McLaurin, some injury news here, dealing with minor turf toe. This went from scary to bad to not great, and now it's kind of settling at not great with Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson continues an amazing August. I could tell right there, Julia, you got excited by the knee thing.
I love Jahan Dotson. I loved him last year, and I look, watching some of those Commanders preseason games, I'm like, could they be good? Could we actually see, I love Sam Howell. I think he's fantastic.
So do I.
I'm just they looked like an entirely different team. And that's exciting. It's got to be exciting to have that. I don't really know what that's like if your team all of a sudden goes from bad to good and you're like, look at this, what's happening? But I think Dotson's so flippin' talented. And I think, what did they say with McLaurin out? He'll probably, what do you think? If
they're saying maybe they're not ruling out week 1. He's pushing himself to be week 1.
Yeah.
It sounds like a week 2 type of situation at best. I would be surprised if he's out there week 1.
I think Dotson's just going to blow it up. It's going to be so exciting. Yeah, I like him a lot. I think I'm trying to get him wherever I can.
Turf toe is also one of those injuries that it lingers, and they can play through it. It's really not a physical injury that can prevent you from playing, but it's strictly a pain thing.
Yeah.
And McLaurin could be dealing with this all season long. So as someone with a million Terry shares, because I have him in every Dynasty league from when he was a rookie, it doesn't feel great. I'm a little bit concerned. But we'll see as it goes. What's your any temperature down there, Joel?
Yeah, I think you guys hit on it. It's a scary injury for a receiver, right? It's like you said, it's something that could affect him all year. So yeah, luckily I was I was light on Jahan Dotson shares, so I was kind of actively moving my trying to trade my DJ Moore shares where I was too heavy on for Dotson in a second, and I did get quite a few that way. So. Yeah, I've got more Dotson shares than McLaurin shares. So this dynasty-wise, I think it's maybe the rocket ship that we've been waiting for Dotson.
I don't have enough Dotson shares, and it feels terrible. And I know that's going to be something that's going to bite me in a few months from now. Jerry Jeudy, another one of my receivers that I've been touting all summer, suffers a grade 2 hamstring injury. Will be sidelined multiple weeks. And this has been the story of the career of Jerry Jeudy, who was destined to play 10 to 13 games every single year outside of, I guess, playing 15 last year. But Yeah, frustrating for Jerry Jeudy. Sounds like he'll at least miss the start of the season. I don't think he's a candidate for the pup or anything like that, but it does sound like Jerry Jeudy will be sidelined. Cortland Sutton and everyone's Dynasty darling Marvin Mims.
Marvin.
Man, everyone is on board with Marvin Mims right now. And last week, I believe, Joel, I brought up a trade that I traded away Marvin Mims last week, about 4 days before this injury happened. So this has been a great month for Michael Sicoli here on this show. Julia, what's your I can't tell if that was happy excitement for Marvin Mims or just like, oh my God, I'm ready over it.
I love Marvin Mims too. Yeah. I think he's fantastic. And then he goes to Denver and I'm like, well, we've got all of those people there. You got Jeudy, you got Tim Patrick. It's like he's just gonna be a guy that catches a couple passes and steals a random touchdown at some point, right? But they're just falling like flies over there in Denver. So it's hard with hamstrings too, because I feel like as a fast, explosive wide receiver, that's another injury that is so easy to re-injure, right? Or you're being a little tentative in it and whatnot. I wonder if it's going to be more Cortland Sutton. I feel like it might have to be. And I think Marvin Mims can definitely get up there and steal some stuff. So, yeah, happy I have held on to him some places.
Joel, how about you? Excited, not excited? What's the temp?
Just more reason to be out on Russell Wilson. That's really all I have to say.
Yeah.
Which I have been consistently throughout this offseason. So not tooting the horn yet, but like Cortland Sutton, I'm just waiting for one big game and then I'm going to unload wherever I can. He's had
great idea.
Zero dynasty value. So we talked about him earlier. You just really can't trade him for anything. So the kind of minute he has any trade value, I'm shipping everywhere I can.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy's value, while it does help guys like Marvin Mims and Cortland Sutton for obvious reasons, and even Greg Dulcich to a lesser extent, it's bad for the entire offense because Jerry Jeudy was the greatest chain mover on this offense, given Javonte Williams' knee situation and everything like that. So ultimately, does not help. That is not good news, and injuries don't always mean good things for everybody. What is good news, so we can get away from this injury buzz, is Josh Jacobs, excuse me, inking a 1-year, $12 million deal to stay with the Las Vegas Raiders. So this deal is done. He pulled a Saquon Barkley, held out as long as he could, couldn't get more money, couldn't get a market, and he stays a Raider for 1 more year. So status quo. Is everyone on board with status quo with Josh Jacobs? Roll him out there, top 5, top 10 running back easily.
Yeah, 100%. I think the difference between him and Taylor, it's like he clearly wanted to go back to Vegas. I think he wanted that sign, he wanted it taken care of, but he also did value himself, which is great. So yeah, I think even watching those few videos that have come out on Twitter of him going back into the facility and seeing people, it's like he has joy in his eyes. So yeah, I'm all about Josh Jacobs. Those Samir White shares are looking a little rough, but
That's a shame. I had a soft spot for Zamir White. I wasn't all in. I had one toe in the water. I'm pulling it out for sure now. Yeah. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, it does feel similar to Saquon Barkley situation where Saquon really wanted to be a giant and he wanted to be what this fan base has really adored themselves around with him. And, it just took them eventually the money to reach what they each needed to be, I guess. Not wanted, but needed. Joel, still all steam forward with Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, this was kind of the inevitable conclusion. It was just when it was going to happen. So he basically gets, about 2 weeks to get himself into football shape. The question becomes, with these holdouts, they can be kind of injury prone. We had a question in the chat from Charizard about, are they going to run him into the ground? Probably as much as they can.
Oh, yeah.
So I would expect them to. I mean, they did last year, even with, kind of McDaniels, people were afraid of him splitting that load with Zamir White and everything. And Jacobs got 375 touches. So, the question is, does he bounce back from those touches? Can he handle that load and bounce back? And does the holdout hurt him any because he wasn't in camp for that long? So a little bit of injury risk, but yeah, I'm dynasty wise, he's going to maintain the value you kind of expected from him.
Yeah. We got Front Yard Fantasy pulling up right now in the chat saying hi to Julia and
Joey.
Joey and I shared some quality time in the Canton airport.
God,
years ago.
Happy birthday, Joey.
So
he's the best.
Happy birthday.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's the best.
awesome. But a couple other dirty Dynasty news before we jump into our mock draft because I'm already running a little bit late. Sean Tucker splitting with Rachaad White in practice in case you guys needed another reason to be off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Smoke or fire, just real quick, Julia.
I mean, can I just not draft any of them?
Yes,
That's what I would prefer to do. That would be like, I mean, besides Mike Evans, I think Mike Evans is actually going to have a pretty decent year. But like, besides that, I'm just, as much as I'd like to be interested, I am not interested. You know,
Joel, you interested? You swiping the right on him?
I mean, if I can get Sean Tucker as like a waiver wire pickup, sure, I'll take that. Yeah. Rachaad White, I think, man, there was a window to sell him earlier in the offseason. I think that's kind of closing quickly. Yeah, he's a nice passing down back. I don't expect much on the ground. You know, now they're saying Ryan Jensen could miss it, could have like a career-ending injury, which is
I saw that too.
Really scary.
What was it?
I think it's another knee injury or something. I don't know, but they're saying it's like legitimately career. He's 32 anyway, so it's a really rough offensive line. They only had like 20 sacks last year, but that was because Brady was just, Brady and Baker Mayfield are not the same player, so I wouldn't expect that to repeat. Yeah, so I like Godwin. I like Godwin in that offense just because he's going to be a target hog. I do like Mike Evans because they're going to have to throw it a lot. It's going to be a lot of garbage time, I would expect. But, yeah, I don't want a whole lot of shares in this running game.
Yeah, Tom Brady was in the top 10 of sack percentage of pressures that turned into sacks. He didn't allow many of those, to no one's surprise. Baker Mayfield was dead last, I believe 35th on that list. So we're going to see a very fun Tampa Bay offense this year. And by fun, I mean terrible. So let's jump into our Dynasty draft here, our Dynasty mock draft. Thank you for everyone for hopping in, although it looks like we have a spot avoided, which honestly, I always like having one random CPU team in there to throw everything out of Mike. It was full, but let's jump right into it. This is a Superflex League standard scoring at the request of our followers, starting off with Eric Yahola. And before we jump into the draft and process and all things like that, I have a couple questions for Julia because you are our guest today, and I have a lot of things I want to ask you. First of all, first question off the board, not even fancy related. Saw it in the Twitter bio. Says you're self-prescribed Leslie Nope. I want to know exactly what that means.
Oh my God, 100%. I am as Leslie Nope as you can get. Spreadsheets are my love language, and I am. It's funny. I'm just her. It's one of my best friends. We always say that she's my Anne to my Leslie, and that's just, she's more chill and all that sort of stuff, and I'm very type A and high strung and got to do all the things, and she's that's
you're on the clock, by the way, Julie. I bombarded you with that one, so I'd side bomb with that one. As Joe knows from a couple of weeks ago, me hosting during these drafts is still a learning curve, so it's fun. But I got it. Spreadsheets, Leslie Nope. It all makes sense to me. Excuse me. Joel, any thoughts with all the quarterbacks going off the board right now? And I'm going to add to it with Trevor Lawrence here. 8 quarterbacks off the board to start this draft in this Superflex Dynasty.
Yeah, just remember it's standard scoring. So it is Superflex, obviously, so your quarterback's going to be valuable. Standard scoring, like, it's really touchdown dependent. That's where the biggest percentage of your points are going to come from, and quarterbacks are going to be your most reliable scorers. So should be a heavy premium on quarterbacks in this draft.
Yeah, and it's emphasized even more when you have this standard scoring as well, because the wide receivers take a hit, even running backs take a hit because they catch passes. Everyone does. So for you guys still run around with that standard scoring, quarterback is always the way. As if you guys need us to tell you that. But Julia, I've also been reading a few other of your articles. I mentioned Morning Chalk, obviously fantasy footballers as well. So question, you're recently covering CrossFit games, right?
Yeah.
When you're going through your fantasy drafts, which player makes you feel like you're going through a CrossFit workout before you draft them? Which one is working your mind?
I'm just sweating and I don't know. Oh,
exactly.
God. Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. I'm a little better with it now because I've been watching Hard Knocks, but Aaron Rodgers gives me anxiety, and for many reasons, he just gives me anxiety. But or maybe before Hard Knocks, he's definitely got a bump now with that. But you'd get to kind of the end of the draft, and I was like, I mean, it's a pretty good value there. Like if I waited on a quarterback, maybe I'd just take Aaron Rodgers. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do this. I've been taking him more now just because he's looking, I think he's going to be good. I mean, do you guys think that, like, are the Jets going to be good? I think the Jets are going to be good.
Yeah, let's take a second with that one there. We have Joel, a resident Packer fan here, with the whole Aaron Rodgers debacle that I've been going with him for several months now. Joel,
How are you with all this?
So I agree with you. Aaron Rodgers gives me anxiety as well, even though like the breakup has happened and we've moved on. I think he will probably be fine for fantasy. I don't think the Jets are going to be really. I don't think they're as good as people are kind of purporting them to be. I think they have serious offensive line issues, and that's going to be an issue for a 39-year-old quarterback. But yeah, I think fantasy-wise, he'll be fine.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm on the clock. Let's see.
No, all good, because I'll jump in with my thoughts on the Jets because, I'm in New York over here. I have all the temperature. I was watching the Jets-Giants game the other day, which I had the wrong end of the over-under on very clearly. But the point here is that I do believe in the Jets this year. And it's not because it's partially the Rodgers situation. That's obviously a large part of it. Of the upgrade from, Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers is substantial. But I believe Garrett Wilson is going to be elite of elite of elite. Went 3 for 30 and 1 on 2 drives yesterday. He is going to be Rodgers number 1. And I don't think this defense is coming close to a setback. They've gone deeper this offseason. They added Will McDonald, who I think is going to be an invaluable part of that rotation that didn't even have Jermaine Johnson factor in that much last year. So I don't want to get too into my defensive fantasy football side of it here. But the Jets defense is here to stay. And it's going to, if they could just get average offense, and that's all they need. And I think they're going to come close to.
I agree with you. They just literally need to be okay. I don't know.
It's tough. It feels wrong being on.
It's been nice to see, and I don't know why I was not an Aaron Rodgers person. I feel like I always thought he was the type of guy that you'd run into at a bar, and he'd be like, "Hey," and it would just be like, "Look at me, I'm hot shit." And so, and then just all the stuff he did, but watching Hard Knocks and seeing him actually mentor somebody, and you see a lot more of the human part. I'm so big on seeing the human part of these guys that that just won me over. And Zach Wilson looks up to him like a dad. It's so cute. It's so cute.
He better. He's twice his age.
I know, he really should. He really should. But yeah.
No, it is nice to see. And I've kind of always leaned towards the side of, I feel like the mentorship angles, the narrative like that is a little bit overblown. But when you get to see it a little bit more, I think it's a very case by case. And if you get to see it we're seeing with Hard Knocks, the access we get, that's always good to see. Now, I realized a headline actually that I forgot to bring up at the top of the show, but realized as I was scanning through the quarterbacks here, Dak Prescott still went to you, Joel, in the second round, but the Cowboys made a certain trade for a certain 49ers quarterback the other day. Trey Lance. Oh, damn. That was a missed opportunity.
I know, it really was.
It's okay. That's a shame. Let's repeat. We cut it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, God, what do I do here? Oh, no.
I thought it was. But Trey Lance is now a Dallas Cowboy, traded for a 4th-round pick. Joel, obviously, you have no concerns with that, taking Dak Prescott as your second quarterback off the board. Any thoughts on Trey Lance's long-term outlook, or is any chance of him even factoring in for 2023?
No, barring a Dak injury, not for 2023. Yeah, I kind of went on my rant about this a couple of weeks ago about the small school quarterbacks and how they need, coaching and the opportunity to sit and learn. Lance just never had that, right? He's been injured. He's just never really gotten the opportunity to kind of run with a team. He landed in probably a good spot with McCarthy because he was kind of the guy who turned Aaron Rodgers into the quarterback that he became. Aaron Rodgers needed a lot of work when he came out of Cal. He was not ready to play those first 2 years. So it's a good spot. How long he stays there, I would guess that they probably end up flipping him in the offseason next year. They're gonna re-sign Dak. They're gonna redo his contract, but so I would expect this is just kind of a long-term investment for Dallas and a short-term backup plan.
and that's the question I should have asked you, and I'll rephrase it now for Julia. The the big talk of this offseason was an extension with Dak was going to get done. It's going to get done. We're going to be working out the cap. It's going to be better. Then they trade for Trey Lance, and the extension still. Do you think this is, part of the end for Dak Prescott in Dallas, or a massive overreaction that we're going to jump to because it's 2 weeks before the season and we're trying for new headlines?
I mean, I kind of think that Dak does need to prove himself this year. I think Jerry Jones is constantly sitting there waiting for somebody to disappoint him so he can do something. He's that guy, right? Did you see there was a quote? Hold on. Let me pick somebody and then move on. Blurg. Okay. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I am gonna do that. There was a quote that came out asking Jerry Jones about Trey Lance, and it was not great. He was like, "Yeah, we don't want to use him. We don't want to need him. We don't want anything about him this season." And it was I know what he was trying to get across, but if we go back to the human thing again, Trey Lance has been, I feel like he's just been kicked around, right? He's been on the ground, not by his own doing, injury and whatnot. And poor guy, dude, he just wants to be wanted.
Yeah, and that's what he needed as well. I mean, Joel just mentioned about being one of those smaller school guys, not a lot of starts under his belt. He needed a team that was going to foster him and get him where he needed to be. And the 49ers were until they weren't. And then the man snaps his ankle and he's burnt toast. It's really a shame, and I guess a statement on how the NFL views its players, but that's getting way too deep for how our August mock draft is going over here. So another question I want to ask you, Julia, and this stood out to me because honestly, I could sense these things. Kendry Miller stands. We're together on this one, right, Julia? Because I saw on your
we're pro Kendry Miller, right?
Pro Kendry Miller on this show, 100%.
This is a Kendry Miller sponsored podcast.
Yes, this is a Kendry Miller sponsored podcast. In fact, I had a banner I deleted because it was for last week's show saying that Kendry Miller almost causes Mike a heart attack for the million knee sprains that he's been going through in the last few weeks and then turning out to be okay. And it's been way too stressful. So I'm happy. Yeah, you're about to be on the clock, so I'm not going to talk too much into it until you get your picking. But Alvin Kamara dealing with a 3-game suspension. You have Jamal Williams there. And obviously Kendry Miller being the rookie of the bunch and the one that I'm incredibly excited for, the one you're excited for, the one Joel is kind of middle of the temp on, if I remember correctly. Right, Joel? Kind of a little bit lower, maybe, a little bit anti.
Like the talent, concerned about the offseason injuries and his ability to integrate into the system.
Okay, I'll take that. Fair. That's fair. And Julia, I want you to answer that exactly right there. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I just love him. I love his talent. I think he's great. I think he's got a hell of an opportunity there. I mean, Kamara he wasn't great last season. So, you kind of need a bounce back year from him if you're going to continue to value him at all. And I don't know. I just don't believe in him anymore. Maybe he's just let me down too many times, but I think Kendry Miller can really take advantage of this opportunity. I think he could be one of the great rookie running backs this season. I think I'm behind him. I love Tank Bigsby too. Big Tank Bigsby fan. I think those two guys are going to be, I think they have the potential to have really good years.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Kendry Miller because I'm not overly convinced that Alvin Kamara is going to be the Alvin Kamara we know. And I think we're all expecting Jamal Williams to kind of take a step back, but I don't think enough talk is going towards Alvin Kamara in that type of regard, where he's still going in drafts in that middle round area. I took him once before the suspension because I took a 5-round discount on him, and I got a 3-game suspension, but I don't find myself interested in it. And part of that is my Kendry Miller love.
Last season, so my husband played fantasy football for the first time last season. He's played regular football his entire life, big fan. He's never played fantasy. So his friends get him in a league and I help him draft. And I felt so bad because I got him to pick Allen Robinson and Alvin Kamara.
Right there with you.
And he was just like, do you even know football? I was felt so bad. Like all those takes that like the takes I was so married to that were not great ones, but yeah.
It's a tough world that we all live in with
Really
this.
is.
It's all, and that's the life of doing this for content and being content creators. And I'm sure Joel can talk about it to some extent. Of we're all right until we're not, and then when we're not right, people remember there was far more than when we are right. So
Let's just say this real quick. To all the trolls out there who say to the women in the industry, you've never played the game.
Oh my God.
Julia helping her husband who did play the game. Just go.
You know, it's so funny because it's like the thing that he knows is he'll stop stuff and be like, this play right here, this, you know, like he knows plays. And that's fantastic because that's the thing that I feel like I know the least about. And so it's fun to have him talk to me about that. And then I'll talk to him about the players and stuff. And it's like our house on Sundays is aggressive. So it is aggressive. And our kid's a baseball fan.
Oh boy. That's year round then. Then you never get a day off of this.
No. I wanted to like football a little bit more, but we'll work on that. So.
Listen, I got a soccer and football house here. So at the same time, I got about a month reprieve in July. That's
Dude,
about it. And even then, now Messi's in the MLS, so I'm now got the summer to care about.
Oh my God. It's like nonstop.
Yeah, we've been all over ourselves. But you mentioned Tank Bigsby there, and that's arguably one of the biggest talking points of August is what is this split going to look like? Is there even going to be a split between ETN and Tank Bigsby? So you're high on Bigsby, obviously, at least as a talent. What are you expecting for in 2023?
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to have Jamal Williams-esque touchdown numbers, but he is a bruiser. Like he's somebody that if they are down inside the 5, like give it to him. And I think he will just barrel into the end zone. I'm super high on Jacksonville this season. I think Trevor Lawrence and his beautiful head of hair are going to catapult that team to the top of their division. I think they're going to be amazing. I'm all in on Calvin Ridley. I'm going to really bite myself in the ass if it doesn't happen. But yeah, I think that's how they're going to use him. They're going to use him really because I mean they came out and said they don't want to pound ETN into the ground, which is great. Yeah, I think they just want to even it out.
It's such an interesting situation because you look at what happened last year and it was really a one-back system, but you know that JaMychal Hasty was never going to take touches. And the backups just simply weren't there. And that's why they added Tank Bigsby. And then you have a head coach in Doug Peterson that from Philadelphia loved his little stable of running backs. And that's why we weren't sure about ETN last year.
No, the time drafted.
Okay. And now we have both mixed in the bunch there. What do you think?
I did select someone. Did it freeze?
Did you get Gino? Was Gino the pick? Oh
no, but it moused it. Okay, it went.
There we go. We got it. Did put you on. Okay, perfect. All right. What's your Tank Bigsby temperature? Your Travis Etienne temperature as well, Joel?
I like them both. I think Etienne has been kind of. I think the market has kind of gone way south on him. He's still like I still expect him to get at least the carry share he got last year. I like Bigsby a lot. But I think there's room for both of them in that offense. I think it's going to be a really good offense. Worried about their offensive line as well. They've got some injury and suspension issues, but Trevor Lawrence, I think band-aids a lot of those problems. So I think it's going to be a good offense. I think they're both going to have their opportunities.
It's the hair.
It's the hair. It's there's like a 70% chance that's going to be my Halloween costume this year. Just because.
How does he not have a great hair deal? Let's talk about that. Those are the things that I.
Well, he splits it, doesn't he, with Palomalu? Right? Does he split it with Palomalu on Head and
Shoulders? I don't think he has that. Does he have a Head and Shoulders deal?
I'm gonna vet that immediately because that's the type of information that people are.
I know. I need to get on that. I need to look at that. Talk to his agent.
For some reason, I feel like I remember them comparing in that one. Yeah, no, they do have a shampoo commercial. I'm not sure if it's let's see. Yeah, no, I don't think he has one, but he does use Pantene for everyone out there. All right.
He does not use Pantene. I'm a hairdresser.
Now we're talking about the important stuff on this show. What's wrong with Pantene here?
No. You know what he does? He uses whatever his girlfriend has in the shower. That's what he uses. And both of you.
That doesn't feel like a bad thought.
With your girlfriends and wives. It's whatever's in the shower. You're like, this bottle looks pretty. I'll do that.
Well, this is coming from someone on my side here. I'm a 5-in-1 type of guy, so I have no respect.
My husband is too. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Am I on the clock about to auto draft because that was my issue last week and just got on it? So perfect. Let's start talking about this draft here because I've been almost neglecting it to an extent. So standard drafts, obviously, PPR is really taken over as the norm, but standard is still a large population of fantasy people out there. So how do you approach a dynasty draft differently based on that scoring change? Since you're on the clock, Julia, I'll go to Joel.
Okay.
Well, you can see from my team, I've just gone all old guys pretty much. I did jump on your boy George Pickens. I'm buying into the preseason hype a little bit.
Shit. I got him. Okay. This is very fast. Sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, I'm team old guy. I'm team guys who can score a ton of touchdowns. Like that's all I care about in standard scoring. Just give me touchdowns. So I get Kupp, Adams, Henry, Aaron Jones, all guys who have proven that they can score a ton of touchdowns. I think Pickens could be. I'm buying the Pickett preseason hype a little bit. I was completely out on him. I think he may be okay. So I think they may score more touchdowns than I expected initially.
I too am in on Pittsburgh. The fact that I'm in on Pittsburgh and Jacksonville this year is just are words I never thought I would say. But I think that Steelers offense is going to be pretty good.
It's been such a difficult month for me. Again, as a Steeler fan, you see a little thing about me, and for people that haven't, because we haven't done this show during the season. I'm the type of fan of a team that never believes in it. I don't believe in it. I didn't enjoy a single win of that 11-0 start a couple of years ago. Not a single one. Didn't enjoy it. And I'm to an extent, I'm like Larry David or George Costanza from Seinfeld of how I treat my own teams. I expect the worst. And they have been so damn good this month. They have been so good. And I wasn't a Pickett guy. So it's so difficult for me to wrap my head around what I'm watching because he looks fantastic. Matt Canada's second year in the system looks fantastic. Now it's August. I don't want to run away with it, but it's a good group of weapons. It's a much better offensive line. It'll be a very good running game. Defense is probably still going to be somewhat shoddy, but maybe it's at least the same. So, yeah, everything is there for him to make a step outside of just my concerns about what he is as a talent. So what is let's say he has a great season. What does that look like for fantasy? What is his ceiling realistically? Julia, I'll start with you.
I mean, it's weird because it's like, I'm not taking tons of Kenny Pickett, but I am taking tons of his weapons. So it's sort of counterintuitive, right? Like if I believe in his weapons, I guess I should be starting to believe in Kenny Pickett. But for some reason, I'm not like yet fully in on that. I don't know. I think he could be. I mean, where's he being drafted at? Like, what quarterback is he being drafted at right now? Like,
he just went off the board here in the 8th round of a startup draft with Superflex. Right around the Jordan Love, Geno Smith, Derek Carr, the end of the end. That's a bottom 10, bottom 5 type of quarterback.
Yeah, so like a quarterback 20-ish. I think he could. Sounds so weird to be like top 15. I could see him between 12 to 15, depending on how that touchdown regression to like Deontay goes, right? That's it. I think he's gonna like end up being sort of like a Derek Carr sort of situation where you're like, he lives in the 12 to 15 quarterback range, and you go, yeah, he's fine.
That's exactly what I'm scared of. Because that's perfect. That's a perfect comp right there because he doesn't provide that rushing upside. I don't think we love just the physical upside in general of Kenny Pickett in the arm. He could be good. He could be fine. And that's what I was scared of as a Steeler fan, that he is just fine. And he is Derek Carr. And we wait all this time and all of a sudden he's nothing. But I think that's right on point because he could take a step forward. And if he plays remotely close to Derek Carr anywhere near his prime, that's a significant jump in his second season. Yeah. So if we see that, that's very fantasy relevant and a drastic value right now in drafts because again, we're talking about him as a deep QB3 right now, and that's you if you get a value at quarterback in superflex, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall expectations for Pittsburgh in general, Joel. I'm curious if Julia mentioned she's buying the weapons and everything. And obviously, you're buying George Pickens. Are you in on? Let's talk about Pat Fryermuth then, because the touchdown regression gets tossed around a lot with
I knew you were going to take Kendra Miller.
well, I saw him on the board and I was like, I know he's not going to make it out for me. Listen, I'm multitasking on this show. I took Kendra Miller for everyone watching out there, not tracking along because I have to, and we'll talk about our teams at the end. But the touchdown regression narrative gets thrown around a lot with Deontay because he obviously didn't score any. Pat Fryermuth also only scored 2 touchdowns last year. So what's Joel? What are you thinking about with Pat Fryermuth? Someone who's going around that low end tight end 1, middling tight end 1 at most. Does he have a much higher ceiling than we're acknowledging if Kenny Pickett makes that jump?
I don't think he has a whole lot of ceiling. I don't think he's going to move into that Goddard, Kittle, Waller tier that's above him. So I think he's kind of in that third tier. Well, Kelsey's his own tier. Then there's the next tier, and then there's the other, the guys like Fryermuth and the guys who could be okay. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of Pickens being kind of an end zone guy, and in this format, like the standard scoring, I think that's where I want to be in this offense. I don't think Fryermuth's an elite enough athlete to be somebody I want to be super in on.
I believe in the athleticism, but Julia, you were nodding your head along with most of that. You on the same page?
I mean, tight ends are so hard. Like it's like if you don't get one of, like, for me, it's Kelsey, Andrews, and Waller. Actually, like, I love George Kittle as a player. I don't necessarily target him for fantasy just because they use him so much in blocking scheme. Sure, he ended the year fantastic, which was, I think recency bias when people draft him. But I think, and it's like, then you have kind of everyone else, right? You have like those few people in the middle, and then it's like anyone else you might take a shot on and hope that you get 40 yards and a touchdown. It's a scary thing drafting tight ends. I think Fryermuth is fine. Same thing. Like, yeah, you get 40 yards and a touchdown. That's what you're hoping for, right? Maybe you get lucky and get 2 if it's one of those games, but you're not going to have a consistent production, but you're not getting consistent production with most of the tight ends. This is the world we live in.
And when you look at that at a 6th round, 7th round ADP right now, getting sandwiched between in standard scoring, Ayuk, Terry McLaurin, George Pickens himself, another teammate right there, Dalton Kincaid for another tight end. Do you guys think that's a little bit too high? Do you think that's just about right? Joel, any thoughts about his ADP there?
I'll say I just got Juwan Johnson in the 11th, and I like him a good bit more because he had 7 touchdowns, like in standard scoring. In PPR, it's probably a different story, but I like Johnson a lot just because he's shown he has that touchdown upside. So yeah, 6 would be too early for me for Fryermuth.
What about you, Julia?
Same. That's too early for me. Like, if I'm either taking one of those 3 tight ends or I'm waiting until like much later.
And on the topic of Kincaid, we got a question in here from Blurpy. Should I go Zay Flowers or Dalton Kincaid in Dynasty? I just traded Dalvin Cook for 2 firsts. Very well done. Dramatically well done. You're nice. A savant. I picked Charbonnet first. Now it's to decide between the 2. I lean Zay Flowers. I am very in on Zay Flowers for the foreseeable future. Julia nodding along there. You on the same page?
Yep.
What about you, Joel?
In touchdown premium or tight end premium, sorry, I would take Kincaid. Otherwise, if it's just standard tight end scoring, I would take Flowers.
I think I would go Zay regardless, but I understand that entirely because I'm becoming very in on the Kincaid usage this summer. I think we've seen it of all the reports indicating that he's lighting up in practice. He's becoming that end zone target across the middle in the seam, being used in the slot. And you imagine the very popular report is The Bills used 12 personnel at like 3% last year, dead last in the league, and that's why they drafted Kincaid, was to bump that up with Dawson Knox. So I think it's a lot of good things are going to be happening with Kincaid this year. Realistically, or I want to get back to the draft here. So Sandra scoring, I've talked about our approach to doing exactly that. Some of these teams waited a little bit longer for a quarterback. We look at Nepstein, who I know is my college roommate Noah, at the end there in Pokerwig 2004, waited until the 5th round to get their quarterback. Still ended up with, in my opinion, pretty good rooms of Goff, Geno, Pickett, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love, and Matt Stafford. And they obviously get the massive bump of positional upside by taking non-quarterbacks ahead of them. Julia, what do you think of that approach of passing on a quarterback early in this, despite being it emphasized in standard scoring?
I mean, there are definitely some, it's hard to say like later rounds because, these aren't super late rounds, but there are definitely some quarterbacks that are going later that I still love. Like we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Like I think Matt Stafford is being completely overlooked hold on, let me decide on this one.
Matt Stafford going off the board here. I couldn't even begin to count the quarterbacks, but 1201 sandwich between Roshan Johnson, Brian Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Sky Moore, who I was really hoping made it around to me, but no such luck on that end.
Oh, okay. So back to the quarterbacks. Yeah, I think there's, you have Aaron Rodgers, you have Matt Stafford. I think Geno Smith is being 100% not looked at, and I think that is insane. I think he could
right there with you.
I'm just like, why is he going so late? Yeah, like I said, I like Sam Howell. I think Brock Purdy is going to have a great year. I mean, he looks fantastic. I think there's definitely options if that's the way you want to go. I don't think Jordan Love is a bad choice. Like Jared Goff. I mean, I love Kirk Cousins with that new facial hair. Like that's Kirko, right?
It's an
what is happening?
We've seen sides of Kirk Cousins the last few years that we never thought we would saw, and we are all so here for it.
I love him. That quarterback thing, he is so lovely. Ugh.
I have been such a Kirk Cousins fan for so long, and I still am, just because I think he gets so much hate for absolutely no reason, and I think his teams fail him. But again, I'm going off on another tangent if I keep on doing that. Joel, what's your take on those last two teams really punting quarterback a little bit further?
So we kind of hit on it earlier, right? Because your quarterbacks are your it really depends on your settings, right? Is it 6-point touchdown or 6 point per passing touchdown? How many starters do you have? I think you set this up as a start 9. So that's, then it's okay. If you're only doing like start 8, then it becomes really kind of tricky because, if you're giving up 5 to 10 points into your quarterback, every week between, the difference between say a Mahomes and a Cousins or something like that, what positions are you making that up at? Right. That becomes really tough to do on a regular basis. So start 9, that's mitigated a little bit just because you have one more spot. Assuming it's a 6-point passing touchdown, those guys are still viable. So yeah, it's not the way I would do it, but I could, obviously they've got loaded teams. You got McCaffrey, Garrett Wilson, Steph Diggs, Eckler, Bijan Chase, Barkley, Andrews. Those are some pretty, those are places where you can make up those gaps. So
yeah, now doesn't move the needle at all to get that advantage at tight end. If Mark Andrews, in my opinion, is that type of difference maker at tight end. We just talked a little bit about what George Kittle may or may not be. I tend to lean more towards Julia's side of, especially in Dynasty, I'm never paying the cost. It's just always a little bit too high for how up and down he is, because he's too damn good of a player for his own good, especially with Christian McCaffrey coming to town. Do you think that tight end bonus makes the difference, Joel? Or would you still rather have taken Tua Tagovailoa in the second round?
I think Andrews is one of the very few tight ends that is worth it, even in a non-tight end premium. Like getting back to the Kincaid thing, like in a non-tight end premium, there's no way I'm taking a rookie tight end in the first round of the draft. It's not happening. I got to see it, right? You have to be You have to be a proven difference maker before I'm even interested in you. So yeah, Andrews is one of the very few that deserves to go early in this format.
Yeah, I think in the 4th round, even with the standard scoring, is a tremendous value for Mark Andrews. And I
Sure,
think that might have even been an auto pick. I'm not sure if Poker was, or if Poker, right? I'm sorry, I'm going to use Poker. Poker, I'm not sure if that actually got that in, but it was an awesome pick regardless. So very pro Poker wig on this show so far. And then getting the triple stack of getting 3 quarterbacks that you can start. Me currently sitting with 2 seems to be my
Jalen Warren too. He is
he is savvy.
Yeah.
You have a savvy poker wig at the end of the draft. But I seem to find myself with a bad tendency in these drafts to be taking 2 quarterbacks, thinking I'm set, and then totally forgetting about my QB3. Is that something that I need to address? On our last week's show, we talked with Iowa Mike about Dynasty Best Balls and loading up on quarterbacks. And I feel like I didn't learn my lesson well enough. Julie, what's your take on loading up quarterbacks in dynasties?
I mean, I just had a home draft before I got on with you guys, and I was like, I need to remember to do that because it was superflex, same thing. It's like sometimes you know what it is, but you don't even think about it because you're like, oh, there's blah 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 at a value over there, and Ryan Tannehill was still on the board. That's crazy. We all forgot about that.
ADP is very interesting on.
We all forgot about Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, I think as much as it does pain you, turning down some good values in other positions, like it is scary when you're like, I got 2 quarterbacks. This is all I got, and if one of them goes down, I'm only gonna have 1 quarterback. It's the waiver wire just runs so dry. That's what it is.
Yeah, and the famous sentence that I know Joel mentions a lot of what we talked about a lot on last week's show of the cheapest you're ever going to get them is in the draft with quarterbacks in Dynasty.
It's a good phrase. Yeah.
As soon as you leave, they're worth twice as much as what you drafted them for.
Yeah.
And that kind of creates a near foolproof type of method of buy your quarterbacks in the draft, sell them for a premium. And sure, it leaves you with holes elsewhere, but it's definitely a way to build it if you're a diligent enough owner. Joel, I feel like that sentence might have probably resonates with your way of thinking a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely want at least 3 quarterbacks in superflex, especially in this format where quarterbacks are critical. So most definitely.
Absolutely. Now let's. I want to start looking at our teams a little bit here. I'll not pick on Joel here because he's about to be on the clock. But Julia, talk me through your process so far of going with a pretty balanced build. Getting your 2 quarterbacks somewhat early, getting some running backs in there, some wide receivers, getting your elite tight end in Darren Waller. What are you happy with how this draft is starting out so far?
Yeah, I actually really don't hate my team. I think like talking about touchdowns, like I think DK is gonna have some crazy positive regression there. Same with Najee. These guys are touchdown machines. The only person catching the ball in New York is Darren Waller. So I think same thing with him. And then I think I sprinkled in some young people as well. I think Jonathan Mingo could turn into something over in Carolina, depending on how old Adam Thielen continues to get. And he's old. I love him, but he's old. Same with Jaden Reed, and I like Tank Dell a lot too. So look, I got some people that have to hit, but if they do, sorry, hold on, where am I over?
If they do, sky's the limit, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and in Dynasty too, it's like you can take some of those risks. I don't remember what risk I was going to take here at this moment. Oh God. Okay, let's decide to go. We're going to just start doing, see, this is the point. Like when you're getting to the end of it, I feel like this is where you take your guys, right? Like if you believe in somebody, like, again, I believe in Michael Wilson. So there we go. And he's young. So
in doing that, you just talked me out of making a very ugly pick and taking Zeke. So I thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to reach for those guys at that point. So
at this point, what are you missing out on, right?
Yeah. And that is the question I was going to ask afterwards was, you're heading into these last 3 to 4 rounds. It's a dynasty. It's deep. We're getting to names that chances are, and hopefully, you're never going to play them this season. So what are you looking for with these type of picks? Because redraft, we're looking for guys that perform immediately because we know the waiver wire crush. Dynasty, we know that waiver wire crush isn't going to be coming. So, Joel, what are you looking for on these last few rounds in dynasties normally?
Yeah, I think Julia hit on it. You're just looking for upside and take your guys, right? Take the guys you believe in. What are you missing out on? There's no sure things here. Those stopped about 6-7 rounds ago. So yeah, take your guys, take the guys you want to have on your team, take the guys you want to, pound your chest about. There's nothing wrong with that at this point.
Especially in Dynasty too, because it's like they're going to be there for a while. So you want to be able to be happy and cheering for them as the years progress.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's no better feeling than having the player that started on your taxi squad actually perform as the Dallas Goedert truther of the guy that held him through the Zach Ertz years, and then all of a sudden he gets to start and just boom, feels so good. It's like making your own meal at home. Nothing like a home cooked meal. Julia, I noticed that you took 5 of 6 rookies with your last 6 picks.
Yeah, I'm going hard in that rookie paint there. Yeah. But what's the thing? It's either they don't do anything for you, right? And you're going to get some picks from where you finish. Look, I think these guys are talented, and I think that if they don't hit this year, I think they will hit. And if not, then you get rid of them. That's the thing. It's like, oh, here we go. This is okay. Oh, Banana Ramble.
To Julie's point, right? She took Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed went in the 2nd round of the draft this year. Tank Dell was probably an early 3rd. Mike Wilson was probably late 3rd. Jonathan Mingo was an early 2nd. If you looked at the guys that are taken around him, like Darnell Mooney was taken in front of Jaden Reed, you couldn't have traded Darnell Mooney for a mid-second. There's no way. So yeah, you basically took a 2nd round pick there. So nothing wrong with that.
And I should have mentioned this before as well. This podcast, as well as being a safe spot for Kendra Miller fans, is an extremely positive Jaden Reed train. Like I work midnight to noon, and Joel takes over for the other 12 hours. I'm just shoveling coal into the furnace of the Jaden Reed train. Yeah, so we're very, very pro Jaden Reed on this show. So very, very pro those takes over there. Joel, what's your take on your team thus far? You're about to make another pick, so I apologize if I'm going to put you in an awkward spot. Load up on the quarterbacks early, balanced approach after, got your running backs late.
Yeah, this is the go all in for this year team, and we'll see what happens after that. Hopefully, figuring most leagues probably pay out, or the champion wins around 5 times their entry fee. So I'm probably paying for my next 5 years. This team's old enough where I'm going to probably have to rebuild. But yeah, this is a team that's going to score a lot of touchdowns, and in standard scoring, that's what I want. We've seen Cooper Kupp have massive touchdown seasons. Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, they're all. Aaron Jones has had a 20 touchdown season. They're all old. They don't have a lot of trade value. So this team probably isn't one you're going to draft if you want to do a lot of trading, because really nobody's going to be coming to me. It's a team I'm going to draft to win with. So let's go.
I mean, the difference between my team and your team, Joel, is like the total difference, right? It's like the difference in Dynasty. It's like I'm going all in with all these rookies, and then we'll try to trade with each other at some point.
At some point, yeah, exactly.
I think a big mistake that people make in their dynasty drafts is thinking they're locked into a strategy after the first few rounds, or even after the end of the draft, when you look at it and say, hey, I came away with all these rookies, I must be building for the future. Or Joel coming away with it, I have all these vets, I'm throwing all the chips in. And the reality of that is not so. If you have all those veterans and it's working for you, feel free to buy in week 8, 9, 10. But it doesn't mean you buy in week 1, and vice versa with the rookies.
And if you think about it, right, I've got like Kupp, Adams, Henry, Aaron Jones. So those are all guys kind of at the end of their lifespan as elite NFL players. But, if half of them, 3 out of the 4 of them are still productive next year, this is still a competitive team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cliff is always, we always talk about the cliff as if it's right there. Sometimes it's a year away.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not a cliff. Sometimes it's just a gradual downhill. Sometimes they're still good.
Nice tumble.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like a nice tumble down the
A
sand
slow
dunes?
tumble, a slow tumble down the
You
hill.
got,
Yeah.
you got the California beaches. You're laying slowly, just rolling down the sand. I got the Long Island beaches. We don't have hills. We don't have hills, but we do. We got a lighthouse. I'm falling down the stairs on the lighthouse down there. So yeah, it's there's a lot of ways to go through your draft here. Let me take a second to talk about my team, which I have such mixed feelings about. So I got my 2 quarterbacks early. I got Gibbs. I got Pollard as my 2 running backs to start before going a little bit later with 2 rookies and Kendra Miller. And my favorite rookie ever, Tajay Spears, who has led the preseason in yards after contact. Joel, the doubter down there. I see you. I see you trying to hide.
How many ACLs does he have?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
How many do you need?
Exactly. How many do you need? That is the question.
You don't have one. You can't injure it.
Exactly. That's word for word what I told Joel when we went through this. But yeah. So I got Tajay Spears down there. I don't. I haven't been the biggest Quinn Johnston fan, but what I really went for here and the theme of this show so far has been touchdowns, right? And I think Amari Cooper's going to score. I think CeeDee Lamb's going to score. If Quinn Johnston's going to score, it's going to be on long plays and on touchdowns because he's a big body. I think Dallas Goedert's due for some regression. Tyler Lockett's always been good at scoring touchdowns because his connection, his third eye opens in the red zone, which is ridiculous. So that's really the aim I was going for with this one, but I have mixed feelings because I'm not entirely sold on. I don't love the running back room. I don't love not having, a more stable option. I think I would have liked a J.K. Dobbins, someone I've been very in on this entire offseason to kind of balance out with that carry load. I'm big J.K. Dobbins stan. In fact, I'd say both of us. This is also a pro J.K. Dobbins show.
I really want to be pro J.K. Dobbins, but I just feel
let's
like
talk you into it. Let's talk. Tell me the concerns.
Feel like what's his ADP right now? Like,
he goes off the board. I never got him as anything. I mean, right around here in the 6th round is typically where he's going. Honestly, 5th.
Let's see where he's at.
4 to 6. Well, I'll look it up while you give me your thoughts on that.
I feel like with him, my issue is just where he's going. Okay, here we go. Okay, computer, take your time. Take your time.
He goes off the board right now at the RB22, which is that is
okay, so like on Sleeper, he's like
60th overall, which is what, 5th round, 5-0.
Okay, so like he's going about like Miles Sanders is going before him. I feel like I would take Miles Sanders ahead of him. I don't know. It's just at that spot. I feel like there are people that I want to take ahead of him. Like going into, I don't know. I'm just worried.
You do like the receivers a little bit more. You just tend to be loading up on the receivers.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is like sometimes you can't explain why you feel a certain way about a player, right? For no reason. Like, and I've written about him and everything, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I think he's gonna be okay. But like for some reason I'm just not all in on it. I think Baltimore's going to have a great year, but I think the way Baltimore's going to have a great year is Lamar's just going to run the shit out of that ball. And I think that it's going to go him and you're going to hit on one of those wide receivers. I don't know which one. I personally think it'll be Zay Flowers, but I think it could be somebody else. And then you've got Mark Andrews. I just don't think they'll run Dobbins into the ground, which I think is great for him as a human. But I think for him to get the value back on where he's going, you almost need him to be run into the ground. Is that I don't hate your take on it, but I just
I get that. My basis is, especially when you have guys like Miles Sanders, and I think they're going to have similar workloads. Maybe Sanders will probably get more touches. I have more faith in the Baltimore offense than I do in Carolina. I have more faith in the offensive line. Yeah, I think the touchdowns will be there, and I think the breakaway runs will be there. I know Joel and I have talked at length this summer about J.K. Dobbins being one of the best running backs in breakaway run rate. Even last season, he was a top 5 running back in that, despite being visibly impaired. We looked at him and said, that is not the J.K. Dobbins we know.
He had one leg. He had one leg.
And he was still top 5 in that percentage rate, right behind Breece Hall. So I'm really excited for what he can do 2 years removed from the injury. Am I hitting all the pointers here, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about him at length on the Thursday running back ranking show. Like when he came back off of, like he came back last year off the ACL, and then he was kind of hurt again. He wasn't 100%. When he came back for the last 7 games or 7-8 games, he averaged 7 yards a carry, right? And that was even without Lamar Jackson. The year before he got hurt, he kind of showed that the elite upside, especially in this format, the elite kind of end zone, touchdown scoring ability in that offense. I think that we made the comment before. I think that offense is going to look substantially similar to what it did, just kind of run faster, run more plays. So yeah, I think he's never going to be an elite pass catching back. So I think that's where people kind of get sideways on him. Yeah. So he's never going to be Christian McCaffrey. Okay, cool. He doesn't have to be really good. So yeah. So again, Keep Tread Chet's got him at Dynasty RB 20, the 85th overall pick. I like him quite a bit at that spot.
Have we talked you into it, Julia?
I don't hate your arguments. I don't hate him at all. And I think he's just like a polarizing player. And I don't know.
He's definitely burnt. I think it's definitely also the burn factor. He has yet to really live up to the ADP because we spent such a high rookie pick on him. You spent high ADP and the other got hurt. It's just been unlucky so far. I think is the.
And I just feel like Ravens players, for some reason, it's always a random injury. Even if he doesn't injure the same thing that's been injured before, he'll fall down on the practice field and hurt his thumb or something. That just it's always news out of Baltimore that someone's got an injury, right?
And then out walks Devonta Freeman to go 10 for 20, and it's going to be just
a phoenix rising from the flames. Yeah.
Oh my God! Bring back Kristen Michael, the Phoenix.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That is the ultimate Phoenix rising from the ashes for me. And Mr.
How old is Tevin Colvin?
Oh, is that argument saying Gus Edwards over Chuba? I will say Gus Edwards equals Chuba at this point of his career, unfortunately. But either way, I'm not interested either. But that is our show. That was our Dynasty Standard mock draft. So thank you all for tuning in, especially as we went a little bit over the hour mark, but happy to do it because we had such an amazing guest. Thank you, Julia, with the Fantasy Footballers and everything that you do and the million spaces you work with. Thank you for joining our show. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. Find me on social, on Twitter. I'm at Julia Papworth. I'm over on Instagram, all that stuff as well. Check out my writing, Fantasy Footballers, PFN. If you're into the CrossFit, Morning Chalk Up, all that stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a real fun year.
Awesome. And I really do appreciate you coming on. There's been a blast of a show, I know, for myself and Joel. Joel, any final send-off thoughts you want to throw out there?
No, just thanks to Julia. We've done a few shows together. It's always fun, always a blast. So thank you for coming on. Look forward to the next one.
Love it. Sounds great.
Yep, and that is our show. So everyone, make sure you are following Julia, of course, at Julia Papworth, and as well, Joel at the Joel Wirth, myself at Michael__Sicoli. And of course, you're watching on Club Fantasy FFL, so follow at Club Fantasy FFL. It is Women's Fantasy Football Month. Amazing content's been coming out. Amazing raffles been going on. So be sure to check out on Wednesday nights when the show comes out because it is a great listen week in, week out. So remember, everyone, Dynasty, it's like a disco ball. Keeps on spinning year round. So join the club every Sunday, 8 o'clock Eastern, right here.